The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, we will call the September 3rd, 2020 special council meeting to order, please. Call the roll, please. Or pledge allegiance first, I'm sorry. Okay. Mike, you could do the pledge, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown?
Here.
Mayor Hogue?
Here.
Councilmember Kellum? Here. Councilmember Morrison?
Here.
Councilmember Raymond? Here.
Okay, I have a statement to read on the public pandemic advisory due to the COVID-19 pandemic event emergency. This meeting is being held both in person and virtually by communications media technology, known as CMT. For those here in the council chambers, please do not have your GoToWebinar devices running on any electronic device, as this may cause audio feedback. For virtual attendees who wish to participate during the meeting, during the public participation portions of the meeting, click the hand icon in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Turn on unmute your microphone. Please be patient. Staff will unmute you. Advise you that you're live and ask you to state your name and residence, and you can begin to speak. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please use proper decorum. The council can then choose to respond on your comment or move on to the next commentator until all have been heard. If you raise your hand accidentally, clicking it again will lower your hand. Clicking repeatedly may cause your hand or icon to not be displayed to staff. Staff will be monitoring only the raise hand function. The question function will not be monitored. Therefore, we can move into our meeting, and for getting into the webinar, there's on your screen should be the setup for getting to the register. Okay, our first item is Resolution 2020. Resolution number 2020 adopting a tentative millage rate for the levy of ad valorem taxes for fiscal year 2020-2021. All taxable property located within the city of Cape Canaveral, Brevard County, Florida, providing for an effective date. Mr. Morley, do you want to summary this for us?
Thank you, Mayor. And before I turn it over to our Finance Director, John DeLeo, who I understand is on the webinar right now, I want to just kind of review where we are. We held our first workshop meeting in July-August timeframe as required. And that was an overview of the budget, and then we decided to hold a second workshop meeting in August, and that was to go over it in a little more detail. And Finance Director and I had meetings with each council member before both of those, and we've had meetings with council members since then, including this week, because this week is when the rubber really hits the road, where the proposed budget starts going through the formal procedures. So tonight, we're here to conduct the first of those two public hearings. It's in compliance with the truth and millage regulations and state law. These hearings provide the citizens with additional opportunities to express their views about the proposed budget. And at the second hearing, the budget is adopted. So tonight, what we're here to do is answer any remaining questions. We're here to get some public participation, hear from the public. If they have questions, we'll answer those. And then we'll continue the final step at the September 15th meeting. So with that, perhaps, Mayor, it's best to go to public participation next.
Okay, Stephanie. Do you have any hands or email?
I do not see any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Any emails come in today?
No emails, sir.
Nothing? Okay.
Nothing.
Excuse me, Mayor. I just have to make a statement. I need to leave by 6:45 this evening because I have a meeting that I had planned 1 year in advance. Thank you.
Okay, and Mayor, if I could just state for the record that The council did adopt a tentative millage rate of 3.6396 mils for fiscal year 2021. There's two segments of that. There's the general government millage, which is 3.5878 mils, and a library dependent special district, which is 0.0518 mils. Mayor.
Okay. Council? We've been through it. Got anything you want to add or talk about? Anybody?
Yep, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
I would thank you.
Mr. Morrison?
Yep, so thank you, staff, and the time we spent on this and council. I would like to figure out a way that we can lower this. I understand that, too much would concern council, but with COVID, the economic setbacks that are going on, we went to match the rollback rate. But if we can come down just 1/10 of a mil, that's my proposal today. It's at 3.6396. If we took it to 3.5396, that would see what that means in total revenue. But after talking with Todd, as he shared with us, and John, believe that with our reserves being over the policy of 20%, I think we actually have 22% reserves, roughly a few $100,000 in there, and also with some reduced positions that really the contingency absorbed. Our contingency went to well over $500,000. If we could understand just a ballpark what 1/10 of a mil would be, I'd like to consider that with this council. And I think that the contingency alone, with the great reductions that Todd has worked on, could absorb that, and it really wouldn't penalize any of the expected line items. I think historically, if you look through that contingency fund, 2 years ago, we didn't spend anything out of it, or 2 fiscal years ago. Last fiscal year, I think we didn't spend anything. This year, it looks like we're going to spend a little bit, but we're well over what we averaged there. And again, I think a reduction there would allow us to give the taxpayers in Cape Canaveral some good news when we advertise it and run it. I guess coming up here very shortly, we can say we decreased your taxes this year. I understand too much would hurt, but if we can do that, that would make, I think, the citizens of Cape Canaveral really happy. So thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd just like to say, Mayor, if you don't mind, our citizens, I think, in the most part, are very happy with the way their millage rate and what it is right now, seeing that we are one of the lowest paid in the county. We're already going through COVID-19 right now with reduced revenue coming in. So to do that would basically be a symbolic gesture. We have a lot of things that capital projects that we'd like to see taken care of, and I don't think this is the year to reduce it anymore. Thank you.
Mickey?
Yes, I just have a few things. I would like to hear what John has to say about reducing the millage rate. But then I have a few questions I wanted to ask. I know, first and foremost, I want to thank John DeLeo and his staff for this proposed budget. They did a lot of work, and thank you, John and Todd, for my unending questions. This is my first budget process. But after going through it and asking you guys some questions, reading through it again last night, I came up with some other things that I wanted to talk about for a minute. I think the most important thing, too, that we need to change or make sure we don't do again is how important the retreat was that we missed this year. And now that we have the equipment, if God forbid we should be in this position next year, we could definitely still have it virtually, and that's a good thing. And then I think that as far as workshop budget meetings, I don't think they should ever be scheduled on the same night as a regular council meeting, only because to work through the budget, we have to take line by line items sometimes, and we're rushing because we got the next meeting started. So down the road, if we could schedule budget meetings different than, I know it's harder on the staff, but there's only those few meetings in a year that they need to stay extra or, have a different day than the budget meeting. And then looking through other budgets around, trying to get used to knowing my way around a city budget. I went through some other budgets around the town, around the area. And this year with the pandemic, it's taken a toll on our country from all the way federal government to our little city. And people lost their jobs, businesses closed forever. And we don't know where this invisible enemy is going to attack again or for how long. So in this unknown situation, our budget this year is $2 million more than it was last year. Our unobligated cash balance is $17,189 less than last year, which is still in our 20% required fund, but it's still lower. And that's a small amount compared to our $33 million budget. But I just think every dollar counts nowadays with this unforeseen epidemic we have. Our revenues are up because of the property values going up, but there's still a lot of uncertainty in the rest of the revenue stream through the next year. Fortunately, our employees kept their jobs and worked hard to keep the business of the city working from their homes, which I really appreciate and was good for our citizens. And Public Works did an awesome job out there in the heat, keeping up all the things that needed to be done in our city. And like I said, when I looked at other budgets, I noticed that they were cut, that they were either at the same budget they were last year or lower, and ours is $2 million more. And they cut places like service contracts, promotions, advertising, travel, sponsorships, et cetera. And I went through a lot of that with Todd and understood more about it. But the thing that jumped out at me is that on our budget, travel per diem costs are higher than they were before, in last year's budget. Like the administration expense for travel and per diem is up 815%. And that's on page 31. And community development is up 231%. Infrastructure maintenance is up 41%. Culture affairs is up 102%. And it's not a lot of money, but every little bit helps when we have a lot of projects going and not enough, and not knowing how the revenue thing is going to go, specifically this year. Just something to think about. I don't really think that this budget reflects the citizens' needs or wants, not the people I talk with. They want a safer A1A, and that's not in this budget. They want more than one sidewalk a year, and that's not in this budget. They want nature paths and more green spaces, and that's not in this budget. I think we keep kicking the can down the road when it comes to A1A safety, sidewalks and green spaces. Excuse me. We have had resolution after resolution on how we're going to do it, what we're going to do, and there always seems to be a bigger, larger project that needs to be done. I think we take on large projects, especially this year, when we could tackle more small projects that mean more to the citizens. Just for an example, the streetscape on Thurm and West Central Boulevard, there's still construction going on there. I talked to Todd about this the other day. The hotel, there's one hotel done. There's another hotel being built. There's one being built on the Thurm side of that construction. I don't see why we have to spend that kind of money this year when construction is still going on. And if we spend money and then the construction trucks come through and, ruin it, are we spending more money than we need to on something that wouldn't possibly need to be redone later? And then Central Boulevard, the city doesn't own Central Boulevard yet. the 426,500 of CRA money could be spent on more things, smaller things that need our attention. And we could get 6 more sidewalks, maybe acquire some small greens parcels, like the one next to the ditch for a nature trail. And while construction is going on there around that Therm Central Boulevard, I think that project could wait. City Park, you know, when we bring this up, it kind of sucks the air out of the room, but you know, I'm all for City Park, but I think that we need to take a look at what happened to us this year with having to shut everything down. You know, what if we build that $3 million, $5 million building and then COVID comes and it has to also be shut down for months at a time? Maybe we need to rethink the building and do more outside activities that people could do, like volleyball or cornhole or whatever. I think the $3 million is not all the money we're going to need to build that building. And then there's the $950,000 money from the CRA next year for a splash pad and a skate park. And I don't understand, when I wanted a pool, I was told there was no money and there was no space. But we have $450,000 for a skate park. That doesn't apply to our aging population. I'm totally for a multi-generation center and culture center. I was understanding that the loan we got was going to cover both. With what we've been through for the last months, shutting down everything, maybe we should rethink, like I said, different activities outside that would not be affected if we had to shut down City Hall and the leisure center, culture leisure center altogether. The kids played basketball outside during COVID this whole time and wore masks. I mean, it's just something to think about. The Space Coast Little League has built a phenomenal baseball team. Mike can attest to that. There's kids out there playing baseball wearing masks. That's an outside activity. We need a multi-generation. It's going to take some time to pay for it, and I think we need to rethink the best way to be able to get more bang from our buck and be able to use it in these uncertain times ahead. Ventures Park, that's near and dear to my heart, very important to me and a lot of people in our city. We have $90,000 set aside for a design. And then you look at Cherrydown Park, if and when we acquire it, the design for that is $15,000. I just don't understand, you know, maybe we could do Veterans Park for a little bit less money. And I thank Mr. Morley, the finance department. These are just questions I have that, you know, maybe we need to think about, maybe not for now, maybe for next year, but that's my thoughts.
Okay, anybody respond, Mike? Anything? Come back to structure.
I so often said we are the only city that is our size in Brevard County that doesn't have a facility for our youth, for our senior citizens. And if not now, with the interest rate being what it is now, we'll actually, if we wait, there's a good chance that we could actually lose money. And what's so interesting about our city, its size, it seems like everybody that's for the multi-generation, when I talk to people, they want it. And if we've got a council person that's against it, when they talk to the citizens about the multi-generational center, they don't want any part of it. It's almost like when we ask somebody something, it's almost like we're doing what they call in law practice, doing a leading question. We're trying to input what we really want out of that citizens. There's never, I don't think there's nothing as important for our community right now that's going to bring up property values. When you talk about city, one of the main things that brings up property value and makes a city that people want to go to is low crime rate, nice parks, and nice schools. And we're going to get the parks and the recreational centers and the community centers. People look forward to that when they look for a community to go to. And like I said once before, if not now, when? I understand we're going through COVID, but we can tighten some strings and we can make this happen. This has been a project that's been on the back burner for a while now, and I think we need to go ahead and get it done. And now is the time. Thank you.
Did you?
Yes, I think that we've been very proactive, not reactive. We want to keep this city moving forward. We want to be progressive in the sense that we want to give our citizens something to be very, very proud of. And that multi-gen center has been approved along with the Cape Center. The money is there. Yes, it may cost a little bit more, but we've been talking about this. This goes in alignment with the city vision. And this multi-gen center will help to unify the citizens. Our citizens right now don't seem to have a place to go where they can be together, where they can talk, they can discuss issues, and we really need this. I've even been out canvassing and I've already heard that people are interested in starting a theater group and a city chorus. This is something that I never thought about. I think these are the things that people can be proud of. People like the idea of Tim Ross and the Poet Laureate. He has created a blog. He has an album out. These are the things that raise our quality of life in the city of Cape Canaveral. These are the things that I personally am proud of. I brag about this at Space Coast League of Cities and Florida League of Cities. And I feel that we need to keep moving our city forward. And I appreciate the work that you've done, Nikki and Wes. I also went through page by page, and I have things that I have discussed also with John and Todd. I thank you very much for your time. I know that for example, I think that there was almost $400,000 or $500,000 for a skateboard park. Well, we've already nixed that. That's not really a good thing to have in a city. It's a lot of liability. Now with COVID-19, I don't even know if we can have a splash pad. I really don't know. I mean, things are very uncertain due to this COVID-19. And once we get a vaccine, I think we'll be fine and we can be upright again. I'm happy that we're here in City Hall. I think that means a lot to me personally and this entire council, that we can talk to each other and look into each other's eyes. It's important. I feel that this budget is good. I know that our staff has worked very hard on it. And I had my questions answered today when I met with John DeLeo and Todd Morley. And as I said, I think we have enough. I think we have enough money in reserve. It's possible to change the millage rate, but I think at this time we need to be a little cautious and conservative. And this is all figured out down to the penny. And I feel that perhaps we can change some things in our contingency fund and move one thing to another, like the $400,000 or $500,000 for the skateboard park. Also, I noticed a couple other things, that the wet pond on Center Street is not going to happen. But yes, we need to think in terms that perhaps we need a place for a wet pond in that area. I understand that part. However, I do think the things that we've already decided on, and we need to move forward. So I'm ready to dig for that multi-generational center. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Les?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to respond to what I think are some really good points in the budget that everyone's brought up. But, you know, the issue right here before us is Resolution 2020-18, I think. And so we need to, I think, take action on this this, and then we'll get into the budget, but call it an efficient meeting. I'm going to hold on my comments there if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. But I think that what I'm hearing are, what's important, and just want to respond to, I think Councilmember Kellum, you brought up that you wanted to hear from Financial Director John DeLeo on what the impact of I just use that as an example, the it's currently at 3.6396 and what 3.5396 would be. Again, we can support it. This isn't going to take away from anything from my reviews with the city. Mayor Pro Tem Brown, you said we've got capital projects coming up, so we need basically every dollar we can get. Those capital projects in this improvement plan have been funded. And so the contingency, I'm not saying pull from the multi-generational facility to pay for this. I'm saying pull from the contingency to pay for this. So I don't understand that argument. It's, to me, to say that the citizens are happy with our finances might be true, but I can tell you they will be happier if we can lower it. And I will go as low as we're comfortable, because I think that it's not symbolic, it's real money. And people need to keep as much of it as they can. When we allow people to keep money, they can take care of the priorities that are important to their personal lives. And, when you average out what a tax decrease might be per house, it may not seem like a lot, but we know that that's not how taxes work. Those properties that have higher values are going to pay a higher share in real dollars than those with lower values. And so it impacts every family differently. It impacts businesses differently. And so this is an opportunity for the council to come together, I think, and lower taxes to help the citizens of Cape Canaveral. Property tax, the taxable value increased by 6-7%. And so when we wanted to raise taxes last time, thankfully, Councilmember Kellum and Councilmember Raymond got on board with going back to the rollback rate. But I do agree that, a retreat, kind of the last meeting, was some of the things that I think would have came out in a retreat, more broad macro visioning type. But, when we get into this particular item, if we really want to help citizens, the amount of money, and that's what I'd like to leave, is that we're going to hear from John, just a ballpark, because I know it's not that easy. We got to ask ourselves, what is that really taken away from for the city of Cape Canaveral? And I'm pointing to the contingency line item, and I think we can absorb it. I know we can. So with that, and Todd, maybe Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask John what. Okay.
Everybody's opinion.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else before we? Okay. I'm happy with the way it is. I know for like 6 years out of 7 or whatever it was, we went below rollback. And 1 year we did have to go up a little bit, but out of 7 or 8 years, I think it was pretty good. I'm pretty happy with what we have. I don't ever really want to, like, I'm not a kind of a person to be wanting to dump money here, move money there. And we should get all that set out. There's times when you may have to, but other than just doing it just to do it, I don't move in that direction. But we're going to go ahead and move through here with our thoughts. I'll just get John to come on. John?
Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor, could you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You could hear me? Yeah, so we met extensively with council a few weeks ago, and then with Mickey and Angela and Wes in the last couple days. It makes my job a little bit easier, though, when we have these discussions. And, and I talked to Councilman Morrison and me and Todd extensively. I mean, I wish I I wish he had told me that he was going to want to drop the millage a tenth before the meeting. But fortunately, by working remotely, I'm looking at all my spreadsheets and everything my staff and I have done to put together the budget. So based on what Councilman Morrison's saying, his suggestion would cost the contingency, the budget, $133,000. We would lose $22,000 to the CRA. And that's what just changing it from 3.5878 to 3.4878. It's important to know that we have one good budget here. And yes, we were very fortunate. Council was very fortunate in naming Todd as the city manager, and actually that position being the economic development director position being removed and absorbed with Mr. Dickey and Todd. Yes, the money moved to the CRA. Well, that was a wonderful thing because we were at 393 with the impact of the capital projects, and we know what that impact's going to be. That money is extremely important, and yes, every penny will be needed. So as far as the impact to millage, is I hear most of the council saying, yeah, my recommendation as finance director is, yeah, keep it at the rollback rate. You've done a wonderful thing for the citizens, and of course, then the capital projects are coming. Also, I want to make a comment about what Councilman Kellum said. She said, you know, there's no money in there for sidewalks. She said there's just one sidewalk. Well, that's not necessarily true, because anything that has to be done with mobility, anything that has to be with mobility can be used for sidewalk. And there in the IM budget, there's $75,000, which in fact, if somewhere along the line council, and I would say as we get to the second or third quarter, decided that they would want another sidewalk, we could look at the funding then. There's a very good chance you could put in another sidewalk. That's another reason not to evaporate the contingency, because if it's council's vision to do that, possibly later in the year, an additional sidewalk could be done with a transfer from contingency to the infrastructure maintenance department. So there's a lot of ways you can go, but staff has looked at this hard with the city manager, and this rollback rate, I think, is wonderful. The contingency is strong because of the change we had in organization, making Todd the city manager. And it's a win-win. I also heard council talking about the unobligated reserve is at 22%. Well, that's a very, very, very good thing. Yeah, there's probably an extra 200 plus K. I don't know exact, probably about 225 extra in there that would take us to the 20%. But that those monies could be evaporated quickly based on some unknown event, hurricane, resurgence of COVID-19, overruns in capital projects. So we got to be real careful that we think maybe we may be rewarding the citizens, but in essence, I'll just tell you this, in essence, we are rewarding the citizens with a multi-generational center in a Cape Center. Like Councilman Raymond had said, it's amazing how positive it'll be for those folks. And those are tax-paying folks, but those folks will utilize that facility, and the young people will too. And what a positive thing for the city to occupy the kids and keep them off the streets and have them in a safe environment. So everything that's been done in this budget has been well thought out. It's council's decision. I'm only your advisor as the finance director, but I think if we stay what we want, where we are, we're healthy. And as we negotiate with the contractor for these capital projects, we could, we'll come out on top. So that's about all I got. If anybody else has got any other questions, feel free to ask me.
Mr. Mayor, I have clarity on this. Hey, John, if you can hear me, you said it was 133,000 out of the general fund and an additional 22,000. Is that a total of 155? Or
Well, what happens is, Wes, and I wish you had asked me this in our meeting, but I've got my spreadsheets open, so bear with me, okay? So by changing that, yeah, it'll roll down 133,000 in the general fund, and because then the share that has to go, because the millage is reduced, that's the millage applied that can go to the CRA. So that becomes that's 22K. And then the matching from the county, that is also 22K, because you have to reduce both sides. Yeah. So the CRA takes a hit, and obviously the general fund takes a hit. But I can tell you, my recommendation is not to go back and forth on these numbers, is there's no real good reason to reduce the millage at this point, because we are going to be able to do these capital projects, and in the end, the citizens will benefit even more so.
Todd, can you help me? Do you understand the question? Is it 133 or is it 155? In fairness to John, he cut out a little bit.
It's 133. It's 133, and the overall effect in the CRA based on the sharing portion is 22K. So in essence, yes, it's 150. It'll be 155.
Okay.
Thank you, Don. You just broke up a little there. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be 155. But there's an effect. There's always a trickle effect whenever you start rolling the numbers.
I think you're continuing to break up, John. I think you answered the question. Thank you.
There's always a trickle effect when you start rolling the numbers.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could add, I can understand where the cross-section of the council is coming from here. We've, as Councilmember Raymond said, this is one of our most progressive years, most progressive budgets ever. In terms of capital projects, it certainly is. And we planned this for years. It was years ramping up to this. And I can also understand where Councilmember Cullum and Councilmember Morrison are coming from, that there's a COVID-19 crisis happening where there's people are suffering all over the place for various reasons. And you've got these two things combining at the same time. So that explains why we feel differently about it, because and that's tension and that's conflict, and that's where we are. It's a very real thing. But what we've presented to you is a budget that can handle all of that. We can handle the multi-generational facility. We can handle the Cape Center. We're going to see that in 2 weeks at the council meeting. We're going to actually propose that we phase it over 2 fiscal years to make it happen, so that we can make it happen. We can't do it all in 1 year. The money's not there. The money's that tight. So giving away more money is difficult. I'm sorry, giving away is a bad choice of word. Collecting less money is a difficult thing to do at this point in time. What we're proposing here is a budget that hopefully can take care of all of this, considering the hits that we're going to continue to see with COVID-19. I think John's done a terrific job of predicting the effect on accrued revenues for this period of time, and that's going to continue for a while, but he's taken that into account when he put these numbers together. John, if you could just indulge me, what would be the effect on an average taxpayer's bill if we did drop that 1/10 of a millage point? Is that something you can give us a rough ballpark on?
I would have to do as the council goes on here, I could give you a
Okay.
I guess on $100,000 home, I'm just going to estimate $14, $15. And
Mayor, that's the point I wanted to make, is I see why there's conflict here, and I think future years, it'd be an easy decision.
Yeah. What's that?
I think in future years, it would be an easier thing to do to reduce. John, I'm speaking to the council. Thank you.
Absolutely.
In future years, it'd be an easier decision to reduce.
Yeah, I just don't know how low, how low council want to go even in the future. with these. You know, you can cut the rollback rate from 3.6396 down to 3.6350 and take off, you know, you would take off $23,000, say. I mean, so now what you've done for the citizens is you've said, well, you know, it's barely anything, but so is this more of a, you know, just a perception thing, or, you know, depending on, I mean, how low you want to go, maybe go down to 3.0. That'll take us leave us with about a.
Hey, John, can I interrupt you for a second? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
John, can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you.
John?
Yes. I could hear
Steph?
you. Could you hear me?
Tiffany, I don't think John can hear us. Can you cut him off?
I could hear you.
I hate to say that, John. I know I'll pay for that.
I could
Can
hear
you,
you.
I'll be like Alexa. Alexa, stop. Thank you, John. The last point I wanted to make is to put off these projects, or one of them, that is going to introduce additional costs. As we all know, construction costs go up every year. We have interest rates will go up. The cost of money will go up. We've got historically low rate money here. But also, codes change. Designs have to change. You're paying twice now for a design. You're paying for it to be put out to bid. We would end up paying so much more added on to these projects to delay them. And I just wanted to add that there's a cost to that decision as well. And that's all I have to say, Mayor. Thank you. And thank you, John, for being patient.
All right, Council.
I have one other comment. I think this is where we really need to make a decision. And I think part of this is we need to have confidence in our staff. And I know that the staff has worked very diligently on this particular budget. And I just think that we need to move forward, keep moving forward. Thank you.
I have one more question for Todd. The point that I brought up about and like I said, after I talked to you, I had this question. The travel and per diem, and I know it's not a lot of money, but now with everything on the webinar and classes that people take, nobody's going anywhere.
Yeah, we're finding we're not spending that money.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't there a way we could cut down on those expenses?
They will be cut down. I can see that already happening. It's happened this year too. They'll
Right.
continue to there'll be money not spent, or not that much anyways. And again, you budget for it because you plan to do these things.
Right.
The reality hits the road. You don't spend that money.
Mhm. Okay. All right.
It's like all of our
Mickey,
League of Cities
if I may,
functions
could
have all
anybody
been.
hear me? No?
We can hear you, John.
Okay,
ahead.
so what I was going to say, you know, there's things that happen behind the scenes that's necessary to protect the budget and what have you, and to limit the effect. Some of you may look at it and say, well, geez, the effect on the budget doesn't seem that much with the COVID. It's because we take smart steps in not, say, putting into our R&R account the $28,000 that is an option for us to put in, and we hang on to that. Well, we've been doing that since April. That has saved the city, you know, to protect us from the unknown. That has saved us over $110,000. I mean, not saved us, but positions us that we haven't spent the $110,000, and so we have that in our hands in case the hit for the accrued revenues is $400,000. Then because of what we did not putting money into the investment account, it's only $300,000. So you do these things so you don't have to pull out of reserves and things. But that's what finance people do.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Stephanie, I would like to ask you, is there anybody out there who go to public on this? I think we've had our say so far.
Sir, there are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, and I understood there was no emails on this subject, correct? Okay. All right, council. Anybody got any more comments? Well, let's look for a motion.
I have just a question. Is this council, is anyone willing to lower the millage rate? I am in full support of 3.6396. We heard that impact. The money is there. And I want to make a very important comment. Nikki's talking about, Councilmember Kellum's talking about sidewalks. A1A has been brought up, and these are 100% priorities to this community. Blight, A1A are up at the top. And the proposals we get and the answer we got from John to you, Nikki, was that, hey, later down in the road, after we spend all of these other capital improvement projects, if there's any money left over, then we'll get to it. And what I'm hearing here is that we can't afford to lower taxes because the loan, the multi-million-dollar loan that we have budgeted here for the multi-generational facility in the Cape Center is not going to be enough. That's what I'm hearing. And so the 20% contingency reserves, by the way, which accounting best practices, I think around 16%, the council set 4% buffer in there, so 20%. When you get over 20%, I mean, it'd be better to pay off debt in many respects because you're getting hit with interest. That's too conservative. And so, but we're hearing don't touch the 2% extra because these capital projects are going to need them. We're saying there's a $560-something thousand, whatever it is, contingency in here, even though we've really never even came close to that number. Don't touch that because these capital projects are going to need it. And if there's any money left over, then we'll get to A1A, then we'll get to the sidewalks. And definitely don't touch that tax, that millage rate, because that's going to take us down 155,000 ballpark number. That's not exciting to me because I'm seeing this black hole in one parcel. And so if this council, my question is, are we willing to lower anything? And if 155,000 is too much, what number would you get comfortable with? John shared 3.6350 would knock 23,000 off. I think we can do better than that. But whatever the number is, if we knock 100,000 off, that's a step in the right direction. And I know that, we asked John to kind of share what it was. And I understand that Todd and John are very passionate about moving these projects forward, but I'm not coming after the budgeted expense for the multi-generational facility. I'm coming after a contingency that's sitting in the general fund. But what I'm hearing is no, that contingency's got to go to the multi-gen and the extra money. We can't touch anything. I'm not advocating to delay these projects. I'm just saying today, where can we go? Or are we going to just stay firm and say, we're not going to lower it $1 for the citizens. We're just going to be at the rollback rate. Open question if anyone wants to answer.
I believe in the last meeting that we had at our workshop, our budget workshop, we already did lower this. We lowered the millage rate at the last meeting that we had, remember?
Oh, yeah.
So we already lowered it.
Well, hold on. When you met, you say, I've already got I meet with staff, I got all my questions answered.
Yes.
You said that today. You actually said that in the last meeting, if I remember. And if you remember, you came away from that meeting after a meeting with staff and you thought, because, and I don't like this, and I'd like to see this addressed in the future, the budget that was put out, well, let me go back to last year's. The millage rate that came out last year in the budget book, it says that the rate is below the rollback rate. That was last year's. So it said The 2019-20 rate is below the rollback rate. This year, when the budget came out, it said the rate is below last year's millage rate.
Right. That's
And I didn't like that. I think that's very deceiving. I'm not accusing anyone, but why didn't we say because you would have had to say this year's rate is above the rollback rate. And we all know that if you go above the rollback rate, or should know, that's a tax increase. So we took a tax increase and basically met the rollback rate and did a break even. But we have not lowered taxes for the citizen. And that's what I'm trying to say is is this council willing to lower anything for the citizens of Cape Canaveral? Or are we saying, yeah, we're 22%, which is 6% above best practices. We've got a $500,000, $500,000 in contingency, which we've never used. And we've got, $4 or $5 million in debt. And we're going to need all that for these capital projects.
Mayor, may I make a statement? Mayor?
And so,
Mr. Mayor, John, let him finish.
So my question, man, working through you obviously is, and I'd like to hear the council, are we willing to go down anything? I mean, I just put the number out there, which is calculated 155, but if that just gives you butterflies, we can go up. It'll be better than nothing.
You can find out what a motion. Mr. DeLeo, go ahead.
I was just going to point out two things about what Councilman Morrison said. When we went below rollback, so the amount that was below rollback that year, I believe, was between $7,000 and $10,000, which equates to pretty much nothing, just like maybe $1 on a $100,000 home. So I just wanted to point out that when you go below rollback, we were below rollback, but we were only like $7,000 to $10,000 below. And also in our verbiage about is the millage lower than last year's, the way when we first did this before you guys went to rollback? Yes, it's lower than last year's millage, and that's specifically what it says. And everyone knows, and most people on council should know at this point, when a millage is lower than the previous year's millage, that's what it means. It's lower. It doesn't mean, you don't have to specify that it's still above rollback. That's a decision that y'all made, and you made that decision and you went to rollback. So I don't think it's deceiving at all. Actually, it's pretty straightforward. But again, below rollback a year ago was not even negligible. So that's all I got.
Well, what you're trying to do, you're trying to save me about $1 on my tax. What you're doing is helping the guys that have the multi-million places. I'm getting $1 maybe on my tax, on my evaluation of my home.
And
so it's really not helping me.
How did you come up with $1? How do you know that?
What I'd be getting if I took a mill off of my house. A tenth of a mill. Maybe $1. My tax isn't really that much for the city. The state, you need to go over and talk to the county and the school board.
But
my tax for my house this year is going to be $1,082.
I understand, and mine
that would be $1.
Mine is pretty similar, but but what about a big commercial property? What about a big residential property? Do we not care about them too? I mean, when you can use the lowest,
you'd be helping the big property owners.
It helps everyone proportional to the property value. It's a flat tax rate. It's not like income tax. Relative to the, I know you do, but like let's take a restaurant like Southern Charm. Let's take Zarella's. Let's take Yogi's commercial. They're going to save more, and they've went through a lot of pain during
I'm paying the property taxes on
What's that?
The renters.
But renters
Yeah.
indirectly pay
They
taxes.
pay it indirectly, correct? But
I
not
mean,
all of it.
But, you know, the new construction, the new homes,
If you want to try to lower the millage, make a motion. Let's just move on.
well, I don't want to put a rate out
I
that,
just want to say one more thing. Councilman Morrison said, is this, and I think these are exact words, is this council willing to lower anything? This council has worked tirelessly to lower fees, user fees, permit fees. We spent hours in this council so I just want to put it on record. We have worked to help our citizens out and to lower fees and to lower other things, not necessarily the millage so much, but we have worked tirelessly to lower and help our citizens out during this COVID period. Thank you.
If I could just add a side to that, thank you for bringing that up, Mayor Pro Tem. Those fee reductions are expiring come October 1st. We're going to be bringing an extension back to you at the September 15th meeting.
but those fees only impact the people who are doing new projects. This is an across-the-board benefit to every taxpayer. Those fees were them. So, Mr. Mayor, I hear you loud and clear. Nikki, I'll ask you, is that too much for you, 3.5396?
I'm happy with what we proposed last meeting and what was before us tonight.
I think that if we could lower it, it would be good. You know, but they're saying that the budget is tight and I agree with you when you said, you know, the $75,000 that John said, oh, we have $65,000 designated for a sidewalk. That's one sidewalk, one street. If we, at the end of this, if we have extra money, we might get two sidewalks. But is there a guarantee that the $75,000, if it's extra, will go to sidewalks? Or will it get sucked up in the multi-generation center that I'm not against? I want a multi-generation center. Or some other huge project that we're doing, the Therm Central, West Central project that is that going to get sucked up in there, and then we'll wait another year to get sidewalks? And you know, I can't, the $1,600,000 it is for the Therm Central Park project. It's hard for me to get on board with that when we still have people with no sidewalks and people's houses are still flooding. And we're going to put all that money into two streets, actually. That's why I'm hesitant about, you know, yes, I would like to help out the citizens as much as we can. Is $1, $2 that big of a difference? But is this money going to get sucked up somewhere else? You know, we went to rollback. You know, if we go a little lower, is it going to make that much difference to, are people even going to notice in their tax bill that they came down? I mean, my tax bill, it wouldn't really matter at my house, you know, but everybody's important. And, you know, if it helps these struggling businesses right now that are really struggling.
I don't see how it's going to help the business because they're still going to be paying the tax. They're going to still be paying to the landlord. The landlord's the guy that's protecting his butt. That's all you're protecting. You're not protecting the business by lowering your city tax.
Right.
The landlord's not going to give it back other than he just taxes what's there.
Right.
It's
Mr. Mayor, there's owner operators that own the land and the business in the city. They're not all landlord-tenant relationships. So does Yogi own his property? Does Yogi own his property?
Yeah.
Okay, he owns his business. Does Mr. Moshgal own his Beachwave?
Most of the
Business. Does
people that rent Beachwave owns the buildings. Everybody that's in Beachwave is a renter.
Does IAP own their land? IAP?
Yeah.
Okay, and I
would think they do.
Yeah, I would too. And so they're not, the example is true on some, but not across the board.
You're not helping that poor taxpayer that's struggling through pandemic.
Well,
That's really struggling with kids and family and that type of thing. You're not helping them at all.
it's helping them whatever it helps them. I mean, if it's $1, it helps them $1. To say it's not going to matter, they may not notice it, as you said, but the dollar's going to be there.
I think we've
so
done all
we're
we
not-
can do.
Well, we heard an example. It sounds like it's getting heartburn of 3.6350 would lower a whopping $23,000 out of our budget. Councilmember Raymond, would you be open to taking $23,000 out of the budget?
Need
I-
a motion, don't be
don't-
asking.
I don't really,
Out of order, just make a motion if you would like to do that.
I'd like to make a motion.
Well, how am I out of order?
By
like to make-
polling the council.
Excuse me, I'd like to,
I'd like
Did you
to,
ask if you could poll the council?
excuse me, I'd like to make a motion.
well, no,
I'd like
excuse
to
me,
make a motion.
Anthony. Am I out of order from polling the council?
You just took control of the quorum, that's all.
I mean, the debate is,
You
the
don't
debate
have
is
to vote.
proper. I don't know the Robert's rules off the top of my head about individual council member polling, but typically it's the mayor's job to run the meeting and get the input from from each city council member.
Okay.
So,
You were asking for a deduction in the tax line that's before you, and if you want to do that, make a motion, and we'll vote.
I will move it.
Otherwise, I'm gonna get a motion.
I'm happy to make my motion.
Make a motion then.
If you're okay, just so you notice, she's raised in her hand. Councilman,
What, I didn't hear the rate you said, and
3.6350 would be $23,000 reduced out of the entire city budget.
Excuse me, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
So with that, I move, Mr. Mayor, that we lower the millage rate to 3.6350 for resolution number 2020-18.
Your second. That is for a
I
second.
second, I second.
You second? Okay, we have a second. Call the roll, please, for the reduction to, would you want to state your reduction? 3.50 was it?
3.6350.
Okay.
Am I allowed to talk anymore? Or is it already in there?
We got a motion on the floor. We're getting ready to vote. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Against?
Mayor Hoag,
Against?
Councilmember Kellum,
For,
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember Raymond.
Against.
Motion failed. Have another motion?
Yes, I'd like to make motion to adopt the millage rate that we have in 2020-18, resolution number 2020-18, for the millage rate to be 3.6396.
I second.
Does it, 3936? Okay, that was there.
That's correct.
We have a motion from Mrs. Raymond, and we have a second from Mr. Brown to adopt 3.396. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hoag,
4.
Councilmember Kellum,
against,
Councilmember Morrison,
Against.
Councilmember Raymond.
4.
All right, we're going to move over to item number 2, which is ordinance number 042020. Mr. Garganese.
Ordinance 04-2020, an ordinance of the city of Cape Canaveral, Brevard County, Florida, adopting the annual general fund, wastewater enterprise fund, stormwater enterprise fund, enterprise capital fund, special revenue funds, capital project funds, and agency fund budgets for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2020 and ending September 30, 2021, providing for an effective date. This is first reading of this ordinance, proposing to adopt an annual budget. And for all intents and purposes, first reading in the city of Cape Canaveral is the approval of the tentative budget pursuant to the trim statute. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, council? Yeah, before us, the fiscal budget of $34,731,135. I know y'all have been through this, and you know you do have some questions.
yeah, I just have a couple of things I want to say. first of all, you know, I'm not against the multi-generation center. I'm just saying, with what has happened and how we've had to shut things down, that maybe in the process, we could look at one, saving a little money, maybe putting some activities outside that we don't need inside, maybe scaling the building down a little. I don't know, but I'm not against the multi-generation center. I think it's long been needed. The kids need to get off the street. It's very important, but if COVID comes back after we have this $5 million building and we have to shut it down for months and months and months, how's that going to work with our budget, with the citizens? Okay, we spent all this money, now we can't use it. I'm just thinking, because of what's happened and how we've had to reinvent ourselves, everyone, that we could look at ways to maybe make it more friendly outside so we don't have to completely shut it down. If this ever happens again, hopefully it won't. And the only other thing on the, you know, again, this city was incorporated in 1963. We've been promising people sidewalks since then. We still haven't done it. We're going to spend a lot of money on Thurn Boulevard and West Central. Why they're still in construction there. I just think that maybe we could move that till the following fiscal year, or not saying that we don't need it. I'm just saying that we, you know, need to think over how it's going to happen with it still being in the construction. More hotels are going to go up there, and construction trucks and cement trucks and all that will be up and down those roads. That maybe it could be put off for another little couple of years. No, a year or so. And I just would like to see more things in the budget, and hopefully maybe next year it will happen. A lot of people I talk to that lived here all their lives or most of their lives, want more green space. They want things to be green and nice. And, you know, I brought up the green wall ordinance thing. That's a step in the right direction. Other than that, I just want to put on record that I am not against the multi-generation center. I just think we need to think about, oh my God, what happened? We had no summer camp. We had no classes. You know, people play tennis, but what if everything's inside that beautiful big building and we have to shut it down? How are we going to explain that to the citizens of the city? You know, we spent all this money and now you can't go in. I'm just thinking that we need to really think seriously about it, because we're in a new world now. And, you know, that was my point. I definitely want it. I want it to be, you know, for the citizens. I think it's an awesome idea. But, you know, just let's be smart about it and spend our money wisely.
Well, I'd like to just comment back to you, Mickey, that I understand where you're coming from, but a lot of the activities that aren't held today, like summer camp and that sort of thing, wouldn't be held anyway. They're as per se all the time. Basketball is going to be moved inside regardless of whether it's outside or inside. A lot of the activities outside they can have outside that they do have for the rec center. The thing about what the generational facility is a gathering place for everybody if they want to go there. Right now, you can't go anywhere. I mean, you can't even go to your own condominium.
Well, that's what
recreation center. Well, I understand. So if we don't start the generational facility and get it moving and get going, we're losing money every month it sits there right now. And it got held up. You requested a pool. We looked at the pool. That held it up for a couple months, and we found out that it wasn't possible. And then the redesign factor, and the more we wait, the longer we wait, and the codes are changing on you, and you're going to be winding up doing a lot more cost to the thing than what it is now if we don't go ahead and proceed and get going. Yeah, and hopefully, let's hope the COVID does go away and never comes back. But who's got a crystal ball that says that what we're doing is going to be correct, what we're doing is going to be wrong? So we got it laid out, and I think we should move forward and go for the best. And all the construction on the roads, and we don't know.
Right.
These are
Well,
things
I was talking
If
about,
we just sit and let it go, the costs are going up. It's going to be unreachable in a couple of years if you don't do it.
right. I do believe that we should do it, like I said.
Well, we
Just
need to
think-
move on and move it, and then not throw any curves in there, because it's got to be done. It's got to be done. We go ahead and do it,
Okay.
and then hope for the best. That's all you can do. Hope we don't have any hurricanes.
And we-
That way, you got a lot of money left over at the end of the year, and next year you can throw some more on sidewalks again. We put a big increase on sidewalks. Yes, Mr. Brown.
Okay, only thing I'd like to say is, nothing's more important than, of course, our youth. And I'd like to say our seniors. And we've used the opinion of Commander Waller before, and I think he would echo what I'm going to say, that we need something that provides structure to our youth to get a lot of these kids off the street. And now is the time. Commander, would you agree? Thank you.
I also think that this is for our health and our safety and security. And I think that should be our number one priority. This is for our residents. And I think that's what we all want. And I thought that we already are talking about item number 2 on the agenda, the wastewater fund. I thought that
Well, it's supposed to be.
our city attorney read that ordinance, and that's what we're talking about right
Yeah,
now.
it is.
Thank you.
I understand. Everybody get their speed. All righty. Ms. Morrison.
Well, this is just the waste. Sorry, I think we were playing Little Blue. I'm sorry.
wasn't touching it.
Good.
Wastewater Enterprise. It's the Water Enterprise Fund. Thank you.
Well, no. It's all the funds. It's annual general fund, wastewater fund, stormwater fund, enterprise. So it's the entire budget we're talking about here. So, yeah, so I mean, look, we don't have to take mayor's opinion, any of this council's opinion. This city invested in, and I advocate, I've never been against this park. I've been against the process. You can't, the record speaks for itself. I adamantly was against not putting this park out for a workshop that the citizens want to get engaged. And the example used earlier by Mayor Pro Tem Brown was that when I talk to citizens, they come back and they tend to favor what I say. And when you talk, they tend to favor what you say. And I agree that there is sometimes leading questions and bias out there. And the one way to solve that is to hold a workshop. But this council did not want to do it. And so that was the one time to say, hey, take them out, let's bring them in. There is zero statistical data that shows that the citizens of Cape Canaveral, zero, of a valid size, want this park of majority. But we did invest shortly after I pleaded with council in doing a survey. And that survey went out thanks to our community engagement and Stephanie and everyone who was involved at the time on this. It cost us money. We hired consultants, and we really didn't spend a lot of time on it. We approved it in a meeting, but not a lot of discussion. And this year I wanted to bring this up in the budget because this isn't my opinion. This isn't Councilmember Callan's opinion or anyone's opinion. This is what a very respectable sample size says. And this does give statistical data on what's important to the citizens of Cape Canaveral. And nowhere in here can you take me to a place that the multi-generational facility or the Cape Center is at the top priority. Now, what I am saying is that doesn't mean we don't move forward with it. What I'm saying is that we approved a certain amount of money and now it's continuing to grow, right? That has not been communicated. When the workshop or the staff presentation of the multi-generational facility, which we fought for to get out to show the designs, what they didn't put on those designs was the price tags up there. They didn't say the Key West style versus this. The answer I remember getting was it's value engineering and we'll always get the most out of it. But most importantly, what they didn't show was that, hey, do you want multi-generational facility platinum version, which say is $5 million, or do you want multi-generational facility, which is $3.5 million, and you can spend that money on A1A blighted areas and sidewalks, or do you want the $2.5 million multi-generational facility, and you can expand green space and all the above, and get stop signs for our deputies, make it more bikeable, walkable, improve our signage within the community, the things that I'm hearing within this community that are important? No, I can go to anyone in this community. And by the way, when you're polling people that come to city events, those people tend to like city events because they go to city events. But when you send someone a letter and do a real statistical survey, which has never been done for this multi-generational facility, and you send it to every condo who already has a gym, they're going to say no. And I'm not making this up because our survey clearly shows that the citizens of Cape Canaveral have spoken. 52% of the residents in Cape Canaveral think that fitness is important. And 41% of them are very satisfied, and another 49% were kind of neutral. So 52, about 1 out of 2 thinks it's important, and about 40% of them are very satisfied. Only 11% of the people were dissatisfied. Only 11% were dissatisfied with the fitness opportunities within this community. My point I want to make is, do you build something? Yeah, you build something for the kids. Do you build what I'm seeing? The biggest capital project that Cape Canaveral may have ever taken on in the Culture and Leisure Services Department. And what this budget doesn't show is the percentage of the pie that Culture and Leisure Services is getting. Probably close to 50% of our budget is going to that. And if you were to talk to citizens right now and ask them, what is important to you? They're going to say, I like to keep money in my pocket because I got a demotion, or I lost my job, or my business closed, or I feel unsafe. And when we look at the issues in the city, the survey also shows us exactly what was important to the citizens. And when you go right here, one of the highest polling things in here was talking about A1A. A whopping 82%. This is one of the highest response rates. 88% of respondents indicated that, that safety was very important, and 10% said it's somewhat important. So 98% of the citizens of Cape Canaveral said that A1A safety is important. Think about that. That is, and everyone in here has ran a campaign. And you can't tell me if you talk to 10 people, one of them didn't, and you polled A1A as safety is not important. And so 98% of the citizens think it's important. And here is where the story tells the truth. 22% of the respondents said that they were satisfied, which means that 79%, almost 80% of the citizens in this community are dissatisfied with the safety of A1A. Now, there's the need, there's the problem. This isn't Wes doing leading questions or bias. When you go to our budget, you would think that we would be able to look a citizen in the eye and go, Mr. Cape Canaveral homeowner, let me show you how we are going to fund A1A. Let me show you how we're going to improve safety on A1A. The next highest one in here in closing is blight. Blight was ranked in a SWOT analysis up there with hurricanes and tornadoes. It was literally ranked as a threat back in the 2012, the other second valid sample size of people in the community visioning. And blight still is an issue today in this community, and people look at blight in different ways, but we've all talked about blight up here. But when you go to our budget, the CRA, largely designed to tackle blight, is going all to one area. And we have gotten better with some grant matching opportunities, which makes me very excited. But out of the two, A1A and blight, those were hands down the most important ones to the citizens. I remember begging citizens to please fill out the survey. It was like 60, it was almost 70 questions. Please fill it out. I got on board with the social media campaigns. The response rate was awesome. And people said, took a long time, but I knocked it out. And then for us to not take it, read it, and then look at the budget, this was why the visioning meeting was very important this year, because I wanted to bring this, because we haven't had a meeting. But here we are. And the opportunity, it's not too late. This is a proposed budget. This isn't a final budget. Why aren't we taking some money, namely, I'm staying on message here, the $560,000 in contingency. You know, we took away economic development position, a little bit of the funds and the things absorbed it, and we rolled it right down into contingency. I was trying to, usually when you cut an expense, you would say, well, now we can lower taxes. Council has spoken that we don't want to help the residents, not even adopt $21,000 on taxes. But since we aren't going to allow the citizens to save money, why can't we take the money, which looks like it's going to be all going towards the capital project, and put it towards A1A? And the way you get what you asked for, Councilmember Kellum, is we put it in that line item. And you say it goes on sidewalks and it stays on sidewalks. We transfer it out of contingency and it goes right here for these intentions, or we put it in the capital improvement project. But out of sidewalks, actually back in the neighborhoods, people, it wasn't as threatening because it's not as busy, but sidewalks on, or walkability and safety on A1A is there. And so what I'd like for us to do is take this, be able to look citizens in the eyes and say, yeah, we send resolutions to Tallahassee. We plead every year to Tallahassee. We are unified on this council. Well, let's put our money where our mouth is and put some funding. And I've talked, thankfully, to our city manager about this. But there's nothing stopping this council today from saying, we don't want to put $500,000 in a contingency. We don't need 22% in reserves. We need 20% in reserves. That's $700,000. Just say keep $200,000 in contingency. Fine. That's what that's for. And reserves are for the hurricanes and all of those things. So that leaves us with $500,000 that we can say, hey, state of Florida, we got $500,000 sitting right here. Here's our resolution. And here's $500,000 that not only do we want it to put it towards trees and traffic calming things, but what's going to really get them to move is to be able to save them money and say, will this move us up higher on the list? I've been talking to Representative Soroy, and he said he is going to get us a ballpark number on what he thinks that will be. Who knows? I know that Todd is looking into this. I'm excited about that. I think all this council should be working. I understand you sit on Transportation Board and you're advocating. Well, now what I'm trying to give you, Councilmember Raymond, is some money. Now you can go to the table and say, and we got $500,000. That's, to me, the biggest opportunity in this budget is to fix A1A, make it safety. Because it's the one place in this city where people actually get killed consistently. That's where the blood is. Or the multi-generational facility. But when I hear that the whole contingency is going to go in excess to the $6.2 million that we've set for these, that doesn't excite me. We can do better. And I'm not mad at anyone. I'm just ready to do this. I want to be able to say, this council came together and we're fixing A1A. And I'll celebrate that with all of us. But if we don't say to staff, and this is the answer I'm anticipating, because it's the answer I've gotten before, Wes, let's run these projects through And if we got any money left over, say third quarter of the year, then we'll transfer it over. We know how this works. How about this? And what that really says is, let's build our culture and leisure services projects first. Then if any money is left over, we'll get to A1A. Just think about that. Why don't we flip it and say, build the culture and leisure services project as we approved, get it within the budget, number one. And then number two, let's put a budget together for A1A. And then if any money is left over from A1A, let's put that towards the upgrades on the culture and leisure services. That's setting priorities. That's what's important to this community. This isn't Wes, just skewing the data. This is the survey that we spent money on, and I'm simply sharing the report that I think we've all seen. Thank you.
Well,
Okay, I have to point out one thing about the survey. 100% of the residents did not respond to the survey.
This largest sample size we've ever had.
And the percentage?
You were so 1,000, a 10%.
1,000%.
David Green bragged, and I agreed with
I
him.
don't
We
think
didn't agree
1,000%.
often that was a respectable number. It was over 1,000.
Yeah, over 1,000, but we have 10,000 people
We
in
have
the city.
6,000 homes.
Okay,
All right.
I'm not gonna argue, but it's not 100%.
And you'll,
Mr. Mayor, if I
I'll
can
come into
clarify,
a dispute over that.
if I can clarify, if you're going to be a hawk on credible data, you show me, I think it was 14 people filled out a survey for the multi-generational facility, and one of them is sitting right there, Mayor Pro Tem Brown, and the other one is sitting back there, Dave Dickey, who does not live in our city, respectfully. He filled out a survey. Out of the 14, I could be wrong, responses, those two put their names on the response. And that's the data that we're going to use, 14 people. And so if
That's
we're,
not only the data,
this
we
is
got
the
a
most-
citizens.
but this is
We have a
incredible.
vision statement with.
But this
dates
is
back
what we
20
do.
years ago that
But
said
this is
that.
what we do.
All right, we're
You
gonna-
guys discredit real data.
Forrest, you're-
if,
It's
what
frustrating.
what I find hard is, Councilman Morrison is using the survey as, he likes to look at the survey and make a decision based on, or use that as input. We had a survey, and I think in that survey, it also stated one of our highest ranked resources was Waste Pro. That was on the survey. As far, you voted against them.
I didn't vote against Waste
Yes,
Pro.
you did.
I voted to put it out to bid.
You voted against Waste Pro. You had an opportunity on that contract to vote for Waste
All
Pro.
right, guys.
We raised our rate 34%, and we would have been with Waste Pro right now if you had made that decision.
Mr. Brown. All right. I know we had a vision of this city back 20-something years ago. One of the main things, and you can go back to the numbers. In fact, I still have a book with the numbers in it. One of the main things that this city wanted was meeting place,
A gathering
a
place.
gathering.
On the water.
Not on the water.
Yes, it is.
I'll bring the book to you. I got the book with all the notes in it. That night, you can tell it's parchment. It's old. I still have the book. I was there. I went to every one of them. So don't tell me what it was, what it wasn't.
I know what it was.
There was gathering places, and one of the most things was the dining on water. Dining on water on the river. So I'm very well astute of what took place. You weren't there, so don't correct what I said. I can show it to you.
I'll be
I have the
ready.
book.
I've seen
Dining on the water was there, but a gathering place in the city. And the odd part about one of the most gathering places that was called out was the old, what's the gentleman that owned the mobile home park? His house fell in the ocean 35, 40, 50 years ago. That was the place where they wanted, Washington Avenue. But I'll pinpoint it right to you.
But the
The
gathering,
gathering place was pinpointed at Washington Avenue.
but it wasn't more important than A1A safety.
A1A safety has been important ever since the city's been incorporated. I mean, and you're dealing with the state of Florida.
That's my
And
point.
you're dealing with the state of Florida, so you want to take tax dollars from the citizens of the city of Cape Canaveral and pay for a state highway.
Yes.
Well, I don't think I think you'd have citizens up in arms over that. 'Cause
Let's poll
They
them.
pay a lot of state taxes.
I'm ready to poll them.
can pull them if you want. Does anybody else have anything to add to this?
I'd like to, yeah, no, I was gonna make a motion.
I would just like to say, I agree with Wes about, can't we in this budget take a certain amount of money and put it towards A1A, whether it be trees, calming effects or something. Like you say, you've been around, A1A has been a problem since the beginning of this city. And if we need to put some money towards, to show the state that, okay, we've had enough, we're done waiting, let's do something. And we're ready to, and I bet you, if you ask the citizens, would you mind if $2 out of your city taxes goes to bettering A1A, they would all agree because it's so important. So I don't understand why we can't just take a certain money out of the contingency or wherever and say, okay, here's $50,000 to start with. We're going to put that towards A1A. And, and then like Wes said, at the end, when we get these projects done, which all need to happen, I'm not, the community center is very, very important to everyone, but let's not kick the can down the road again with A1A in this budget again, and other projects go before A1A again. Let's make some kind of motion that we hear you citizens, this is what we're doing. Not that we take a survey, these people answer, they take their time to do it, and then we just go, well, we don't care what you have to say, we're gonna do what we want. I think that it's important. A1A is very important. And if we have to chisel out a little bit of money this year, a little bit of money next year, or however we can do it, Todd has some great ideas about, talking with the state about doing, but it needs to be addressed. It can't keep getting kicked down the road. And fall behind a multi-generation center or fall behind a streetscape on Thurm Boulevard or Central Boulevard. It has to be a number one priority for us. And I think anything that we can do to show the people that we are listening and not ignoring what they are telling us would be an improvement.
I don't think anybody's been ignoring it, Nikki. It's just been a fact that we can't get anything out of the state. We've been trying for years and years and years to get traffic lights. We used to have a crossing for the school kids. They took it off when they improved it and didn't put it back. Why? Well, they just didn't put it back.
Well,
We had a school crossing right there on A1A at Church Street
right.
with a traffic signal for the kids. And they took it out when they improved A1A, but they didn't put it back. So, but Todd, I'd like to ask you, what is the update on A1A improvement with the state? But they're supposedly now they're putting in the blowout on the road that they want to do and all. Where are we at with all this?
I don't have the number on the top of my head, but I sent out an email earlier or late last week, I think it was, that had the construction estimate cost. I forget where it was between was it 20 million or something? I can't remember exactly what it was, but I wanted to say that this is the first year I remember ever in my time here that we were actually talking about a line item funding for A1A improvements where we're putting money into it. It's never been one of the cans that you put money in before. And I can't say why, I really don't know why, but we all want A1A safety. That is a priority. So we're just now starting to talk about it. The conversation started, I think it started with you, Councilmember Kellum, last council meeting. So it's a very fresh conversation coming late into the budget adoption process. And again, that's causing some conflict. Is it a great idea? Yeah, it's a great idea, but it's conflicting with other things. I would like to see us have one of those cans in there for A1A money. And I think mobility monies that are not used in the city could be put into that. I think that tree bank money that's not used for anything else can be put in that. I think that public safety items that are earmarked for other public safety expenses that are not spent could be put in there. I think we can find ways to find scraps to put into that can starting this year. But right now, where are we going to take a big chunk of money? Where are we going to get $500,000 to seed that can this year? That's the difficult decision. I don't know where it comes from at this point. I would say going into next fiscal year, let's definitely establish that count. Let's find ways to put money into that, and then we're really speaking, putting our money where our mouth is. And I want to add one other side to this, and there's another side of this coin. A1A is a state road. It is not a city road. We do not own it. We do not control it. We typically don't put money into other people's property. We don't put city money into other people's property. We put city money into city properties. What we do typically is we incentivize those other properties. Like we'll incentivize through our codes for CRA monies, perhaps the facade grants or whatnot. We tend to incentivize improvements on other properties. So when we're having this discussion with the public, we're not giving money to A1A as so much as we're incentivizing the project to happen sooner. I just want to make sure we talk about it in those terms. And that's all I have to say about that. I hope that was responsive, Mayor.
Yeah, I think trying to find some money this year is like you want to lower the budget and then try to find money. The money you're going to find by lowering it, that isn't going to, I don't think it's a big incentive to A1A when you're talking $30-40 million. But I think what Todd said, yes, is a good thing. Next year, we can probably find $500,000 if we really do it right. But I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. And if we keep going the way we're going, then okay, well, let's just stop and do it next year or hold up on the generational facility. Next year, you're going to be paying a lot more than the $22,000 you're trying to save. Its construction costs are going up. I can tell you that because that's how I make my living. It's going up. It's not coming down. And nothing's staying the same. It changes every day in my field. I have to call every day for cost. But, yeah, I know A1A's been a long, hard thing. And if the speeding out there is terrible, I say these guys, they could stand out there all day and probably get carpal tunnel from writing tickets. It's crazy out there. But what do?
I'm trying to.
I don't think your approach is going to really
What
bring
do
them off
you
the
do?
carpet and
What
bring
you
it down and start out there tomorrow morning. And
Yeah.
you plan on it next year to put it in there, and we approach the state. Yeah, we can put some matching funds up, and yeah, we can and make a plan, not just.
What I'm saying
it's
is,
gonna happen. It ain't going to happen.
I have identified $700,000, 2% excess in the reserve that we need, 500,000 in excess,
We've already
in
been through all of
contingency.
that. I don't need to.
And so, well, Todd said, I don't know where the money comes from. When we say,
Well, you're taking money
that
out
we're
of
gonna-
contingency. It's what you want to do.
right, but where's
And I don't
contingency?
want to do that.
Well, how much?
But you might have two devastating Cat 4 hurricanes.
That's what our reserves are
So,
for.
well, that's what I'm saying.
That's not what a
You don't know what
contingency
all
is
is going
for.
to happen under, then all the,
Oh, I know what's going to
all
happen
the
to
costs.
contingency. It's not going to go for a hurricane. It's going to go straight into the multi-generational
well, I hope it
facility.
doesn't go
And
through.
then, okay, my final statement is when that happens, when that money goes from contingency to multi-generational facility, then I get to look the citizens in the eye and say, hey, A1A isn't done yet because, well, $500,000 went this way, not that way. And that's the question, that's the trade-off, is to say, do you want 500,000 you have in contingency, which way does it go? Does it go to a multi-gen that already has, in Cape Center, that already has 6.2 million? Or do you want to put some money towards A1A? I think 98% of the citizens said it was important, will agree that says, that multi-gen's got enough. Put some money over here.
I want to get it built.
But
We've been-
we passed the
3
budget.
years
We
since
passed the budget to get it built, and it was staff's job to get it in that cost.
I think we had it there until we had to stop and go back last year about a couple of changes that everybody wanted. It drove the price back up again. You're sitting there waiting. You're waiting.
Well,
Every
this-
day plywood goes up. Every day comfort
$10 million.
goes up, plumbing goes up.
10
every
to
day.
12 million, and it's all
Everything
done.
goes up. It goes up. The longer you wait, the more it's going to be. and you promised it to the citizens, so you'll be spending 12 million instead of 5 or 6 when it's
And this,
finally, when we got.
and the
A1A.
story gets sadder because
I'm-
A1A gets nothing that whole time. It's just a sad,
Really, A1A is really not our problem.
it is our problem when our
Problem you
citizens and
keep
our
on the
residents
state, you
get
keep on
killed.
your senator, keep on your representative.
No, but that's what we do. You say
Well,
this
you
all the
see what
time.
happened.
You say, Wes, we've tried.
Why don't you
You've
run for
never,
the Senate and get it up there and go up and get
you've
it?
never tried to put money towards it. Have you tried that?
It's not our obligation to put money towards the state
Then
highway.
Tallahassee doesn't want our words. They want our money. They want, and we have an opportunity to put money
No,
towards it.
You're not gonna get me.
As Todd
I'm not
said,
gonna change
as
my
an
mind.
incentive.
I'm
No,
not.
it's just,
I'm not
we
changing
know
my
how
mind.
this is gonna go. It's gonna be a
It's
10,
been
12
a
million
long
dollar
battle. That road's been a long fight, and it'll be a long fight.
I
another
don't
50
accept
years.
that. I don't accept that. Trying to think outside the box here.
Is A1A going to be done, Todd, regardless where the city puts money in?
Yes, but when? That's the question.
And
We could
that's
put
my
$500,000 into it this year and it might be 5 years, 10 years before it even starts. But the bigger that pot gets, the more attractive it looks for DOT.
I think we need to approach them with a plan and ask.
Yes,
If
and
we
I,
put up a $500,000 next year, what are we gonna get? Are we gonna get any action, or are we gonna just get, well, like we've been getting the last 50 years?
I had a nice discussion with Georgiana Gillette, Executive Director of TPO yesterday on this very topic. And she said, yeah, it has happened and not every city does it. Perhaps what we could do is invite her here to one of our meetings to talk about this as we formulate a plan for putting this into next year's budget. And what's a reasonable amount, perhaps, what have other cities had success with? Maybe put some data behind this decision.
So I'd be all for it. I'd be all for it, but let's formulate a plan with them. We're not just throw $500,000 out of the budget to say, we're gonna put that towards A1A, and then you got some catastrophic event, and you got no money to cover it, and the state of Florida say, oh, okay, you got $500,000 sitting, and we'll be talking to you in 5 years or 4 years or whatever. It's been a.
You know what? I'll take you up on that.
I don't know.
Can we take the 500,000 in contingency and earmark it for a hurricane fund? Because that's the example you keep using. So.
No, I'm not
No, and I
saying
agree.
hurricane. I'm
Let's
talking about- you got
actually,
a lot
let's
of-
transfer the 500,000 into the contingent.
I told you I wasn't changing my mind. So
Because
you're
you know
asking
that
me to do something.
500,000 ain't gonna go towards no hurricane.
I don't know what it's gonna go to. I'm just saying, I don't have a crystal
No.
ball.
No.
And I'm not,
Well,
I'm
let's put a
looking for a
hurricane.
motion on the.
I'll put
like
a
to make a
hurricane
motion.
fund together.
Call for a question. I like to make a motion.
Yeah, this is how you get things done.
What are you trying to say?
I'd like to make.
Yeah.
Are we gonna make a motion for?
You're not-
Let me hear what she, Mickey,
I just have one more. You know,
I think we beat the push.
but I think, and like Todd said, you know, this is the first time we've really talked about it. I was going to bring all this to the retreat. This was and I talked to Dr. Tom, and A1A was the top priority for me. So my thinking is, are the citizens, you know, they get ignored again because we didn't have the retreat. And we had the couple meetings that we had, budget workshop meetings. One was right before the council meeting. We got rushed through. We really didn't have time to discuss it. And you said, you know, the city doesn't usually put money into streets we don't own. What are we doing on Central Boulevard? We're putting a lot of money, and Bob Barger owns Central Boulevard. I just think that the citizens shouldn't have to suffer because COVID came and we didn't have a retreat and we couldn't get the, you know, even if we just made an initiative or whatever, that this year, let's take $100,000, put it in an account. This is for A1A. At least we're making a step in the right direction. And, you know, I can't see us waiting until the third quarter of the year, and there's not going to be any money left to do anything with A1A, and it's going to get kicked down the street again. And I just think that we should do something, even if it's small,
What if you
this
take the
year.
money, Mickey, and you lock it up on A1A and you don't get anything for 10 years? What do you do then?
Then you put it back in the general fund.
Well, I mean, no.
Well,
When you
I-
put it back in the
But
fund,
with
you
that-
wait 10
that's a
years,
fancy-
5 years, 2 years, 1 year.
Mayor,
You're-
it's
you're
just the
asking for a
same
Christmas-
thing that you are saying about what if. What if we build a big building?
No,
and
we
nothing
aren't,
ever-
what if,
And
we are gonna
COVID
build a
strikes for
building.
years.
There's
I
no
know,
what
but
ifs.
my point is,
We're trying to build it, and the
We
longer we
can't-
wait, the more expensive it
but
gets.
nobody says we're gonna wait. Nobody says that we're waiting. What I'm
No, but-
saying is, you're saying, well, what if we put $100,000 into account that's going to go towards trees on A1A? Just say. And
That ain't
nothing,
helping safety.
I'm
You know,
just
You're talking,
using an example, or just say it's $100,000 and we're waiting for the state to tell us something. What if next week they go, oh, well, that's a good idea, we'll do this? What if they never do
I would
anything?
like to get them here to
That-
tell me that.
That's a what if that
Not for
we
me to
can't
put it in the
see.
pot and then ask me.
But for us to do something positive for our citizens, that they can see, okay, they do care about what we say in surveys, that
Well, we care.
A1A is
We care.
important.
Diane,
That is my
I care
point.
definitely. I've been trying for a long time to get crosswalks. Rocky Randall's tried his heart out. I even went to Washington with it, so it doesn't go very good.
I'm just saying, the citizens of our city need something
I
from
know,
us.
but I would like to have a plan rather than just do something that we don't know what we're doing.
Well-
I'd like to get DOT in here and tell me, yeah, you guys put up $500,000, we'll do something.
DOT told me that from Tallahassee and Mike Shannon,
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. I'm sorry. I didn't
and
hear
there
it.
are
I
examples
didn't
that
hear
Todd.
I didn't hear it.
Well,
Well, I didn't hear it.
okay, so
I
how
would like
about
to
this?
See them come
How
in
about
here and
this?
tell everybody.
Let's
Then
take
we'll all
the-
know.
How about we get approval before the money transfers out of
There's a
contingency?
resolution on the,
That,
Need a motion.
any transfer to
Sure.
contingency needs council's approval. How about that? And then we all get to vote on where it goes.
That's a
we're
good
supposed to
idea.
be for a motion.
Oh, it's, if it's a hurricane, if it,
No.
we can all decide.
That's a good
I
idea.
think you had a,
Are you okay with that? That we all approve on how the contingency is spent?
if all this is grandstanding on Councilman Morrison. He just wants to have it on his resume, whether it be taxes or that he.
No.
Grandstanding one on
Make a motion. If you're gonna make a motion.
I think we all like a good resume. Yeah, it's a good thing.
We need a motion to accept the ordinance number 042020.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Ordinance number 0420, a second.
Mayor, before we call for the question, we will want to go for some public participation.
There are no citizens with their hands raised at this time.
Thank you. All right. Do we have a second?
I make a motion that we
Second.
make a
Yeah,
resolution.
he seconded.
Motion and a second. Call the roll, please, on ordinance 042020.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
For,
Mayor Hogue,
4.
Councilmember Kellum,
Against.
Councilmember Morrison,
Against.
Councilmember Raymond.
For.
Okay, warrant's passed. Anybody have any quick reports?
there's no reports.
I got one, Mr. Mayor. It is today. This is my mask. And thank you for the city for sharing it. It is Suicide Awareness Month. I lost my brother-in-law 4 years ago, and I think it's been 4. And it's something that haunts our veterans and people every day. And just want to let you know, if you're feeling upset, talk to somebody. It's very real, and help fund, support, do whatever we can for those who are down. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
Anybody else? Staff?
Yes, sir.
Meeting adjourned.